This is Derek Schneider for EDL 854, and I'm presenting the guidelines for student and staff gifts. First of all, gifts are defined as any personal goods for students or staff purchased with school funds. Gifts for staff members include items purchased for personal use, not necessarily for their classroom. So things like a baby shower, those kinds of things. You need to exclude items purchased by the school or district for the staff's use at school as gifts. So like staplers, those kinds of things when they would be using them in the classroom are not considered gifts. Good rule of thumb for determining: does the item leave the school and the teacher transfers or terminates? Fundraising incentive gifts. So like if you have a fundraiser where you're saying the person with the highest number of t-shirts sold gets some kind of gift. That's what we're talking about with these. They should be given only to students who participate in the fundraising event, need to be age appropriate, and not affect the overall profitability. So you wouldn't want to give a gift that costs 50% of your total profits. Should be purchased with funds raised by the group, and gifts not related to fundraising should not favor one group of students over another. Special achievement gifts, the value of those again should be low. They should be age appropriate, and funding for awards should come from the general fund. So these would be things like a student gets on the honor roll and you give them a $5 Sonic card. Something that's minimal, something that's age appropriate. Gifts to staff members are slightly different than gifts to students. Giving gifts to staff members should be guided by written procedures and coordinated by a committee. That committee should meet consistently to go over those guidelines and contributions the staff has made. Special occasions, so like a retirement or somebody that's worked a certain number of years, need to be reasonably priced and usually paid for with staff remembrance funds. Occasionally those are paid for by the general fund, but we'll go over a little bit later why that's not always a good idea. Most schools establish a remembrance fund to acknowledge staff members' life events. The money in staff remembrance fund comes from annual dues, staff donations, maybe teachers association or something like that, or just literally a staff remembrance fund dues. Special occasion gifts continued. That remembrance fund should be managed by a committee. Again, not necessarily an individual, and it should have some kind of written procedures with dollar limits, those kinds of things, in order to be fair, ethical, and also just to make sure that people are behaving in a responsible manner. That committee should rotate each year. Again, fundraising incentive gifts. These are not quite as common as gifts, incentive gifts that would be for students. But if the staff members participate in a certain fund, especially some kind of fundraising from just the staff, and they want to give an incentive gift for the person that raises the most money, that's definitely within the rules and procedures. Again, gift expenses shouldn't be too much of the overall profit. All staff gifts, so something like at the beginning of the year, at the end of the year, generally should be paid for with staff-generated funds, like pop in the teacher's lounge or donut sales in the teacher's lounge, those kinds of things. If the staff generates funds, it's appropriate to use the funds to benefit the staff. When an all-school fundraising event such as school pictures is held and teacher purchases those pictures, that percentage, so if it's something where teachers participate in a fundraising event at a certain percentage, then you could use that percentage of the staff. Some school districts allow money for incentive recognition gifts to come from the general fund. This is where we talked about you want to limit this practice because the general fund comes primarily from the profits of projects involving the entire student body, and it shouldn't just be limited to something that's given to the staff. Cash or equivalent items should not be given because those come into play with the IRS and tax purposes and should be considered as actual income added on to what the teacher would normally receive. Special occasions for students or teachers that are coping with illness or catastrophic event. These kinds of fundraisers are good, but as the book says, it's best to approach these as to seek a parent organization or something like that to coordinate these, and then use the local bank to handle all the collected funds. That way you kind of keep it out of the hands of the school.